What's up, everybody? This is Trey Biddy with HawgSports.com, HawgSports.com. It's time for your Arkansas versus Western Carolina primer, finally. We're going to talk to Curtis Wilkerson, take a deep dive into some burning questions with this game. We're going to talk about the offense versus defense matchup on both sides of the ball, and we'll talk a little bit about basketball as well. All that and more on today's episode of HawgSports Live. Hey, I want to mention real quick to everybody, you can get HawgSports right now for half price. That's 50% off, obviously. If you're interested in signing up at HawgSports, then it breaks down to just $1.03 a week, $4.48 a month, and billed at just $53.70 for the entire year. There's no promo code for the offer. Just go to HawgSports, HawgSports.com, part of the 24/7 Sports Network, and you'll see the banner ad right there. You can click on it, and you will get the offer. You have to be a new subscriber to sign up. This offer ends on September 5th at 10:59 p.m. Central Daylight Time, actually. All right. Let's get this off of here. Final Arkansas injury report. Obviously, we know Quincy McAdoo's out for the season. Sam Bake's out for the season. McAdoo had the car accident. Bake had the knee injury, suffering an ACL injury. Well, they didn't specifically say that, but that's the kind of injury that keeps you out for the whole year. Let's see, Brady Latham still, we don't know 100% if he's going to be in there. I'm kind of leaning towards not seeing Brady Latham in this opener. We know Devon Manuel has missed a good bit of time. Marion Harris has missed some time as well. Expecting Andrew Chamblee to get the start there, but I think Devon Manuel will also play a good bit. Jashad Stewart's got a heel issue, about 70%. Regardless of the opponent, Pittman said they probably wouldn't play Jashad Stewart. Malik Chavis has a broken finger, so not expecting him to see action. Do think we'll see Jaden Wilson. Do think we'll see Antonio Greer. I think that's pretty much it, isn't it, as far as injuries go? I don't think I'm missing anybody. So that's kind of the final injury report. If you don't see somebody out there, that's why. It's always interesting with freshmen, I think, whether they're going to play in the game or not. Nowadays, it's more and more rare to see freshmen. But I did ask Sam Pittman about this on Wednesday, and he actually, had a few surprises here and there. I think there's a possibility for Malachi Singleton. They're going to definitely try to redshirt him, but you never know how the game goes. Then maybe they find an opportunity to get him a little bit of action. Obviously, I think getting Jacoby Criswell a good bit of action is the priority after getting a comfortable lead with KJ Jefferson. Isaiah Augustov is another guy to keep an eye on, but they're pretty deep at running back. Davion Dozier and Desmond Jones, seems like both of those guys could possibly get some action here and there at wide receiver. Now, we know we're going to see Jalen Braxton. He's one of the second-team cornerbacks. We know we'll see him. TJ Metcalf on the depth chart that was released, he was actually listed as the backup at nickel/hog. So we're going to see him. We're definitely going to see Brad Spence. And, you may not see these guys just a whole lot in the opener. I think you'll see them, but, throughout the season, more and more definitely as a possibility. They really like Brad Spence and how he's come on. Alex Sanford is another guy you'll see, probably primarily on special teams, but Spence, you're going to see him actually play meaningful minutes for them. They're really happy with his progression at linebacker. Sam Pittman said over and over, Quincy Rhodes is just a special talent. I think he's listed at 6'6", 289 right now. So that's saying a lot for Quincy Rhodes and Ian Gerfrard, 6'5", 394. I mean, if you go see Ian Gerfrard out there, you're like, how are they going to keep this guy off the field? He's so huge, like goal line situation and situations like that. But I think it says a lot about those two guys as true freshmen when we're talking about a defensive line that features 8 seniors, because Jashad Stewart's going to be out for this one, but features so many seniors, and these guys are freshmen. I mean, that just kind of tells you about, as Sam Pittman said, how well they hit on those guys. So, obviously we're going to see Lucas. Lucas is going to start. There hasn't been a lot of true freshmen start their opening game at Arkansas. I don't remember if Traylon Burke started the opening game, but I feel like he might have. I know Ty Clary started the opening game, which was pretty unique because he was a blue shirt, wasn't even on scholarship when he initially arrived at Arkansas, but they went with the decision to start him. I believe he started at right guard. So it's pretty rare to see a true freshman, and out of all these guys, the only guy that's going to start as a true freshman is going to be Lucas, unless they come out in some different situation other than, the personnel groupings they've been using pretty much, which is mostly 11 personnel, but we've seen 21 personnel, 12 personnel. We've seen those groupings also. Okay. The game, for those of you wondering about the game, I put a video up on YouTube, but I'll just explain it to you real quick on how to watch. Some of you guys are confused out there. I understand. Not everybody's 20 years old and knows how to, how the things work. But so if you're confused on how to access the game, it's on SEC Network Plus and ESPN Plus. It's listed as both of those. If you get SEC Network on your regular channel guide, whether you're using, a cable service or, a satellite service or, YouTube TV or Hulu or something like that, if you get it on your regular channel guide, SEC Network, then you don't have to pay for anything extra. You're going to get it on SEC Network Plus. What you need to do, you need to either go to the ESPN website on your computer or on your phone. You can use the ESPN app on your phone also. You can use a streaming device, or you can use a smart TV. I use an Apple TV preferably. That's my preference anyway. But you can use a lot of different devices, but you just need to be able to get to the ESPN app. Once you get to the ESPN app, you go to Browse at the top right. You scroll down to Channels. Okay, you go to SEC Network Plus. It's right next to SEC Network, but you go to SEC Network Plus, and then you'll see it on Saturday. It'll be up at the top on Up and Coming. You might have to scroll to the right a little bit, but it'll be there. You can also, if you have ESPN Plus subscription, you can access it that way. But as long as you have it on your regular channel guide, you shouldn't have any problem accessing the game. Okay, you just need to get to the ESPN app or go to the website. You may have to log in with your credentials, from your, just to verify that you pay for cable or, pay for YouTube TV or, pay for satellite or something like that. But as long as you get SEC Network, you're going to be fine. And a lot of you, streaming stuff, you need to have good internet, and to me, the best internet to have out there is with Ozarks Go. Ozarks Go, let me bring up the graphic here. Where are you at, Ozarks Go? There we go. Ozarks Go is a service that I've had for over 2 years now, even before they reached out to me about advertising, which I wouldn't do unless I really felt comfortable with the company. I felt excited about that because I'm able to come on here and say I've never had an outage, never had an unexpected outage. They have worked 100% of the time. They offer several different tiers of internet speed. I have used Gigabit service for years. It's been fantastic. Recently, I had Multibit installed, which is 2,500 megabits per second, which is lightning fast. Gigabit is fine for most people. If you got a lot of people on devices, it's going to just optimize everything. Even if your equipment is graded for 1,000 megabits per second, it's going to optimize all that stuff. So you got a family doing all kinds of different things. The Multibit is a really good deal. They're not going to rope you in with some low price and then jack you up next year. It's going to be the same price this year as it's going to be next year. It's a local company. If you want to call them at 479-684-4900, then you're going to talk to somebody local who may want to talk about the Razorbacks with you. ozarksgo.net/hawg, HAWG, is how you can access them online to find out if they're available in your area. They are expanding out in Rogers and stuff now. So great service. Trey Biddy stamp of approval. Nice people that you work with. So go check us out at ozarksgo.net/HAWG. The game is still, looking at the Bet Saracen app, is still 34.5. It has not moved. I mean, I've been looking at it for like over a month, and it hasn't moved a lot at all. So I guess it's pretty even betting on both sides. But right now on the Bet Saracen app, it is 34.5. Quick hit Catamount offense. Now, I think it's interesting that Arkansas has spent a lot of time doing their 2-on-2 slot cover drill, which is where they throw the ball to one side of the field. And, they've got 3 receivers, 3 defensive backs. And a lot of the work is working on screens, bubble screens. You're going to see a lot of bubble screens from the Catamount offense. Kerwin Bell's a former quarterback, played at Florida back in the mid-late 80s, played with Emmitt Smith, was a 7th-round NFL draft pick. He likes to go out and get guys that are first explosive, and then he'll worry about their size. He's not worried about going out and getting 6'2" receivers when he can go out and get 5'8" receivers who are super fast and electric. Now, don't let that fool you. There is this guy that's 6'4", 200 pounds at wide receiver, but they're pretty shifty overall. They're going to throw a lot of bubble screens, intermediate passes. You'll see some deep patterns. I did see Arkansas working on, just the relationship of the safety and corner when they're running post patterns and stuff like that. So they are expecting them to do that. Kerwin Bell said they're not going to be conservative all. They're going to come out and try to win. They're going to try to put pressure on Arkansas. And he kind of said, I don't care if we win or lose. He called them a bunch of misfit toys also. Just looking at a couple of their guys. Now, their offensive line is actually pretty good size front. And he feels like he has 3 NFL players on the offensive line. Okay, both tackles. So he's got senior left tackle Tyler Smith, 6'8", 310, senior left guard Christian Coulter, 6'5", 320, and junior right tackle Derek Simmons, 6'6", 315. I don't believe Simmons played last year. I think he transferred from Abilene Christian. They also returned their center. So this could be, a good matchup, especially at the tackle spots for Arkansas's defensive ends. Coming out of the gate. I don't mean to say like it should be a good matchup. I'm just saying like it's a good opening, It's surprising that an FCS team would have a 6'8" tackle and a 6'6" tackle, right? Their skill guys are generally going to be smaller, but pretty big up front. Obviously, we're thinking Arkansas's defensive line is going to be a team strength. Carlos Davis was the quarterback last year. He started out last year, got hurt. He's actually transferred to UMass. And Cole Gonzalez, who was a true freshman last year, took over for him. Lost his first start, then won his last 3 starts. 102 of 161 passing for 1,336 yards, 11 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. He can also run a little bit, 43 carries for 147 yards. So he's 3-0 his last 3 games as a starter. Obviously, again, you would expect Arkansas to win this game, but we'll talk about that a little bit because sometimes they have not shown up very well. Sometimes they haven't gotten off to very fast starts. But that's kind of the situation there. Arkansas obviously has changed things dramatically in the secondary, coming off the worst pass defense in the country. And this is an offense, again, you would expect Arkansas to handle them, but they did set a record last year for total yards, like 5,300 yards last year of offense. They had their best record since 2017 at 6-5. You have to go back to 1983 before they had a really remarkable year. They finished runner-up, national championships on the Division II level, Division I AA level. And then I think 84 was the last time they won more than 7 games. So 6-5 for them is not unnotable, I guess. Members of the Southern Conference, Arkansas has played other teams from the Southern Conference that have played them actually pretty well, including the Citadel back in 1992, which knocked Arkansas off in the worst loss in program history. See, Raphael Williams left the program. He was their big-time guy at wide receiver. He's now at San Diego State. Sensor Lee, 36 catches for 634 yards with 6 touchdowns last year as a true freshman. 27 of those catches, 488 of those yards, and 4 of those touchdowns came in the final 5 games. So he really started surging there at the end. David White Jr. caught 20 passes, 384 yards, 6'4", 200 pounds. So not all small at wide receiver. A.J. Bellinger at tight end, 6'3", 245, another quality player for them. Like when you talk about who are these guys' best players, they've got some skill guys. But really, those tackles and the tight end. So that could be good work for Arkansas's defensive ends. Get some good, challenging work early. Hopefully not too challenging. Desmond Reed is an interesting guy because at running back, he's 5'8", 170 pounds, ran 119 times for 826 yards, 4 touchdowns last season in 10 games. Okay, several Power 5 programs were after him as a recruit. He's actually, a ranked prospect in our database as a 3-star recruit. But several programs were after him. He ran for 1,536 yards, 22 touchdowns in high school his senior year. But when they came down and saw him, they see 5'7", 5'8", 160 pounds, 170 pounds, and, they drop him. He did reportedly run a 4.31 40-yard dash at a Florida football camp. Also returned 2 kickoffs for touchdowns in high school. So They've got some explosive guys. They may not be big. I think that makes a lot of sense for Kerwin Bell. Why go out and get a guy who just looks good and has good size? But, if a guy is really talented and has good size, he's playing Power 5 football, right? So it makes sense to go after guys who are, maybe just not quite as big but very explosive, and then worry about getting bigger guys on the offensive line, which they have done. I would expect Western Carolina, just looking at, what they had last year, talking with Kerwin Bell a little bit, and what they have coming back, I think that they're probably going to improve on 6-5 this year. I really think that they have probably have a chance to be a pretty solid team on the Power 5 level. So shouldn't compete in this game, obviously. Arkansas obviously looking to start fast, on the other side of the ball. Andrew Ellis had a nice article just breaking this down. During the 12 regular season games last year, the Hogs scored only one time on their first possession. It was a touchdown in week 2 against South Carolina. They finished in the top 15 nationally in total offense per game. It's like 471 yards a game. But getting slow starts corrected could take the group to another level. That's from Andrew Ellis. You can read his article at HawgSports.com. Again, 50% off right now at HawgSports.com. But I think that's an interesting note. Can Arkansas just come out of the gate storming? What you want to do is kill all hope for Western Carolina. You want to make them say, "Oh, we're not ready for this. We're not ready for this." You don't want to have them. You don't want to come out and go 3 and out, make a mistake punting, and give them good field position and let them get on the board first and give them some confidence. That's the last thing you want to do. And I pointed to Missouri State last year, where they were winning against Arkansas with 9 minutes left to go in the game. It took a punt return by Bryce Stevens to put Arkansas out ahead. I think the thing to watch for them on defense, they've got good linebackers, but their pass rush on defense, they had 32 sacks last season, which was 11th among 130 teams in FCS. They also returned 64.1% of those sacks. Again, this is from Andrew Ellis putting this together. Multi-year starters at defensive tackle and Marlon Alexander, Jaquarius Gwynn, guys that were in our database. Alexander has 7.5 tackles for loss across 2 seasons. He transferred from Gardner-Webb. Gwynn has amassed 56 tackles, 4.5 for loss, and posted 2.5 of his career sacks last season. Chris Morgan is another guy at the nose. So they've got some pretty big defensive tackles. They've got some good ends. That is probably the biggest matchup to watch. I would expect Arkansas to really outmatch them wide receiver and in the secondary. I think Arkansas can put up some big points there. And obviously you would expect them, to get some rushing yards. Now, I want to say this, because in the past when Arkansas has faced some teams that are outmatched a little bit, a lot of times on defense, they will just sell out against something and, kind of call that a victory. A lot of times it's the run game. Like you see a lot of run blitzing from teams. Now, I can remember back in 2010, with Ryan Mallett at quarterback, and Arkansas was playing Louisiana Monroe. Now, Arkansas beat them 31-7, but the Warhawks were just coming at them the whole time, not going to let you run the ball. Arkansas finished with 31 carries for 99 yards. That's 3.2 yards per carry. The next year, I really remember this one because I remember Petrino after the game. Arkansas faced Missouri State, and they took a similar approach. They just run blitzed Arkansas. Arkansas was limited to 33 carries for 102 yards, 3.1 yard average. Now, Brandon Mitchell and Tyler Wilson combined for 379 yards passing in a 51-7 victory. But I remember Bobby Petrino after the game going, he should have just thrown the ball every time, but he just ran the ball basically out of stubbornness because they were run blitzing the whole time. So it wouldn't surprise to see something like that where they just try to totally take away something that Arkansas is doing, and probably their best bet at it is, with the strength of their defense, probably coming at Arkansas, trying to run blitz them and, saying, hey, if you're going to beat us over the top, you're going to beat us over the top. But we're going to take this away from you. I could see something like that playing out. All right, I want to go to Curtis Wilkerson now. For those of you who don't follow Curtis, Curtis does a lot for us. He covers Razorback basketball, covers football, recruiting, transfer portal, does a great job for us. And we haven't had Curtis on the show in a little bit, but we're going to talk just a little bit of basketball because there is some basketball news, and we're going to talk a little bit about those things that we outlined. Hey, Curtis, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing really good. Hey, I wanted to mention real quick that the before we get into any football talk, that the non-conference schedule has been released. What do you think about the way it shapes up? Obviously, they haven't announced the specific dates yet for the conference games. We know who they're playing home and away, who they're playing single games, but they haven't. We're getting those dates soon, but we know the dates now for these non-conference games.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a really good slate. I thought they beefed up the schedule a little bit last year, and I think they've done it again this year. Looks like probably the first couple weeks of the season there, the first 4 games maybe. You've got Alcorn State, Gardner-Webb, Old Dominion, UNC Greensboro. You can figure some things out, work out some kinks, maybe have some tune-ups there, and they're going to need that because it's going to get real after that. I think Arkansas has a really challenging 6 game stretch. It starts with the battle for Atlantis. Those tournaments like that over Feast Week, over the Thanksgiving holiday. Those are all those are awesome. They're marquee events. A lot of eyes on you. Arkansas opens with Stanford. That's going to be a good game. You get either Michigan or Memphis in that, and then you got the opportunity to face uh, a number of options. It could be Northern Iowa, but it could also be North Carolina or Texas Tech or Villanova. So you're going to get some really good games there in the Bahamas. Then you travel back and you've got that huge game against Duke in Bud Walton Arena on the 29th. And so, you could have a situation where Arkansas, theoretically, they could play North Carolina and Duke in back-to-back games. That's awesome. I mean, you'll take that for non-conference all the time, but it doesn't get easier after that. You see Furman on December 4th, and on the surface, you think, oh, okay, well, Furman, big deal, right? But hey, this is a team that won their league. They made the NCAA tournament last year. They upset Virginia in the first round. They got a lot of guys coming back, and it's in a weird spot in the schedule where you've kind of got that game sandwiched between, it's going to be a crazy atmosphere, an emotional game at home against Duke. And then the following weekend, you've got that neutral site game. It's always a big one against Oklahoma and Tulsa. So that Furman game is kind of a trap that you have to keep an eye on. So I think it's an awesome schedule. I think they did a really good job, and nobody's going to be able to accuse Eric Musselman of scheduling light this year. That's for sure.
Curtis Wilkerson joining us again. You can follow Curtis at @KurtWilkerson_. He's the HawgSports senior analyst covering just about everything. Does a great job for us over at HawgSports. Curtis, I want to take you over now to the 5 burning question, keys to victory. Obviously, we would expect Arkansas to win. We kind of do the same keys to victory every week. Everybody always comes up with keys to victory, but it's always comes down to penalties, turnovers, special teams, and injuries. Those are always keys. And you always add a 5th one. This time you put pedal to the metal. Tell us what you mean by that.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we've heard a lot from the players and Sam Pittman throughout the course of camp, and especially this week, about how they just want to get off to better starts, faster starts. And I do think that's important in a game like this. I think, like you said, Arkansas should be able to handle their business in this game, and I expect that they will. But probably the last thing that you want is to get into the second half of this one, and it's a little too close for comfort, and some of those thoughts start creeping back in. You're thinking, man, here we go again. You think back to Rice a couple of years ago. Missouri State, they were down 10 in that game in the fourth quarter before they rallied back, and obviously the Liberty one didn't go too well for them. So there has been kind of a precedent set there for some of these lower-level teams that Arkansas has played. I think Sam Pittman called them maybe the non-logo schools. He wants those guys to play their best every game, regardless of who the opponent is, and that's obviously something that you strive for. And getting off to a fast start and kind of keeping that pedal down until you get under control is probably ideal in a game like this. The longer you go and the closer it is, the more pressure you get if you're the Razorbacks. So, I think getting out to a fast start and getting things under control would be ideal in a game like this for sure.
Obviously, we're watching a lot with what's going on with Arkansas's defense after they were so bad last year. And I can remember going back to with Dan Enos, I can't remember, was it game 2 or 3 where they played Toledo and could not get the ball in the end zone. They put up a lot of points but couldn't get the ball in the end zone. That was one of your burning questions. How will Arkansas look in the debut of new coordinators?
Yeah, for sure. I think that's one of the most intriguing things about this, and it's interesting because you think about, okay, it's an opener, you got an FCS school coming in. How exciting can this be? How much intrigue can there be? But I think there's a lot for Arkansas, and on both sides of the ball there with new coordinators. It's going to be a much different look from Kendall Briles to Dan Enos now, and it's. at the risk of using vanilla by design as a phrase here, there might be some of that, right? I mean, I don't think they're going to show all their cards against Western Carolina in this opener, but how efficient are things? How comfortable does KJ Jefferson look? Commanding the offense there. Are they going to have some busted plays and things of that nature? Is it going to look like a kind of a well-oiled machine? I'm anxious to see what it looks like, what the ratio is going to be with run pass. There's a lot of things I think you can glean from that. And then defensively, yeah, I mean, it was a mess there at times last year. They certainly look better. You think they're going to look better. But what's it going to look like under Travis Williams? He's kind of got that reputation of being aggressive. How aggressive is he going to be? What are we going to see? Are these guys going to have some swagger? Are they going to be flying around to the ball? I think they will, but I'm looking forward to finding out.
Another, I think, interesting point you made on Arkansas's offensive tackles, because the three interior guys, including Joshua Braun at Florida, have starting experience. I don't think we're going to see Brady Latham. We may, but just the way Sam Pittman kind of talked about him kind of makes me think, well, we might not see Brady Latham. But the two tackles don't have any starting experience, and it's going to be Patrick Kutas on one side, probably going to be Andrew Chamblee starting. I think Devon Manuel is your long-term answer there, but he's had a couple of injuries here and there. But we're going to see both of those guys. That's a big question with this, and I think the defensive line for Western Carolina could also give Arkansas some good looks also.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's going to be really interesting to keep an eye on that, especially in these early games. Talking to Sam Pittman yesterday in his press conference, and he was kind of throwing out the idea that, hey, we might be playing 7 or 8 guys here for a while until we find some separation and find that, that first group of 5, like you said, it sounds like he's pretty confident that they have, maybe 3 guys with separation right now, but they've got to figure some things out there still. And like you said, these guys don't have starting experience. They don't have a lot of reps under their belt at those tackle spots, but that doesn't mean they're not immensely talented. And so the more experience they gain, the more reps they get, the better off they're going to be. How are they going to fare? It's just going to be really interesting to see. We've heard so much about Arkansas's defensive line throughout the course of camp. Man, they look like they're going to be a really tough group. And they've been giving those guys some problems off the edge. And, you wonder about, is it because the defensive line is that good, or are these guys going to struggle a little bit out of the gates until they get their feet underneath them? And, you never really know until the live bullets start flying. And it's week 1, so we're going to start to find out and learn a lot more about these guys.
Yeah, I can't wait. I can't wait to start figuring that kind of stuff out. I'll also tell you the thing that intrigues me most on the offensive side of the ball is your third point here. Like, who's Arkansas going to in the passing game? Like, it's 3rd and 10. They got to have it. Who are they getting the ball to here? There's so many new faces there. What are your thoughts on the passing game? I think it could be a different guy leading them in touchdowns, different guy leading them in yardage, a different guy leading them in catches this year.
I agree 100%. I kind of like that freshman tight end, right?
Oh, yeah.
Get the ball to Luke, man. So I'm excited about him and what he brings to the table. And those wide receivers, yeah. I mean, it's just so it's just a different world. I mean, they bring back only 14 receptions from last year's team. And so it's going to be new guys that emerge here. We've heard so much about, Tesla and Armstrong. And those guys have certainly looked the part, man. But I'm excited about Isaiah Satania. He's just so fast and explosive. Yeah. They've just got a number of options there. And then you keep hearing Sam Pittman talking about some of these other guys. Jaden Wilson, he's been so impressed with the strides that he's made. Tyrone Broden, to me, is such an interesting target, especially if you start thinking about getting down in the red zone and maybe throwing it up to a 6'7" guy and letting him go get it. So there's so many options there. You're right. I do think it could be a situation where you have, one guy's kind of the go-to when you need some yardage, maybe something a little bit different when you're looking into the red zone and going up and getting those balls. So you think you're going to have a lot of different guys contribute, and it sounds like they're pretty happy with their depth there. So, man, I don't know, but it's going to be fun to watch because you got such a good situation at quarterback with KJ Jefferson. He's got a lot of new toys to work with. So who's he going to lean on?
Curtis Wilkerson joining us. Again, you can follow him at @KurtWilkerson_. Curtis, you're almost at 10,000 Twitter follows. I don't know if you – or X follows. I guess we're calling it X now.
X follows.
Yeah, you got almost 10,000 X follows. So if you haven't followed Curtis, then go to Twitter or X and follow him at @KurtWilkerson_. You can also read his content at HawgSports. A lot of it is VIP, so you do need a VIP subscription, especially the basketball stuff. Curtis, I'm going to skip over your defensive line, number 4, because we did talk about that a little bit. I want to get you to number 5. Well, the secondary set the tone for the improved season. This has a chance to be the most improved area on the team, really.
Yeah, I really think so. And, it's kind of, again, it's intriguing to look at. You think Western Carolina, okay, an FCS school, what are we really going to learn from this? Hey, those guys can sling it. They really did last year. I think they were, sixth or seventh in the FCS in passing offense. They set a school record in touchdown passes. So they've got some potential there to cause some problems. And, hey, the last FCS school that Arkansas faced, Missouri State, they threw for over 300 on them. And so, again, it's one of those situations where it's like, okay, there's nowhere to go but up with this secondary. But I agree with you. I think they're going to be improved significantly. And I'm just really anxious to see, how some of these guys really emerge. I mean, Jaheim Singletary, what an incredible talent, right? Not too often you get these 5-star type of guys. You got him, opposite of Dwight McLaughlin over there. So what are they going to bring to the table at corner? I think, it's going to be exciting to watch. I really like those Baylor transfers and Al Walcott and Snacks Johnson. I think those are big additions. And then, that other safety spot, who's going to run out there first? I mean, Jaden Johnson and Hudson Clark, two guys that we know a lot about. Probably both are going to see a fair amount of snaps there. But that's, the position battle between a couple guys who've been around for a while. I'm excited about this secondary and the improvements that they've made. And again, you just never really know until the live bullets start flying. So we'll see, if they can kind of set the tone there, if we're going to see some of those struggles that made us cringe a little bit last year.
Yeah, well, I think it's 3 of 5 starters in the secondary are new, and then both coaches in the secondary are also new. So they totally revamped it, as I've said before. If they stink in the secondary, then it's going to be their own standalone issue, not much because of last year. Curtis, before we get you out, is there anything else we should know about basketball, any recruiting stuff happening, anything on the horizon there?
Yeah, well, it's you mentioned a little bit earlier. I think we're going to get that SEC schedule, officially released. Sounds like that's going to come within a week. So I would say stay on the lookout for that. From a recruiting standpoint, obviously not much going on this weekend because they're going to be in Little Rock, but the visits are really going to start piling up after that. The Kent State game the next weekend, they've got a couple of prospects coming in. 2024 4-star Jalen Shelley is going to be in. He visited for that Missouri State game last year. His brother was the quarterback for Missouri State, if you guys remember that. But he's coming back for a second visit, so you always keep your eye on that. And then a 2025 borderline 5-star guy, Malachi Moreno, is going to be in town for that as well. That BYU weekend is shaping up to be a really big one for visits. So they're starting to turn those guys in there for sure. And, recruiting is never dull under Eric Musselman.
All right, Curtis. Appreciate you filling us in, man.
You got it. Sounds great.
All right, everybody. That's Kurt Wilkerson again. Follow him at @KurtWilkerson_ on Twitter. Almost to 10,000 follows. I don't know how he's not at 10,000 yet, but he's almost there. All right. One more time real quick. Ozarks Go. If you haven't checked them out, go to their website. You can reach them at ozarksgo.net/hawg, HAWG. You can call them at 479-684-4900. Great internet service, really fast speed. Great reliability. I think that's the most important thing, that you don't ever have anybody coming by and saying, hey, Dad, why is my internet not working? You just get in arguments. I don't know why it's not working. Unplug it and plug it back in. All the things that you've had to deal with in the past with your internet service. I've had several different companies over the years, and Ozarks Go is the one that's worked the best for me. Very pleased with them. I'm using multi-gig. They also offer Gigabit, which is fantastic lightning speed, great for most people, and they have other tiers as well. So go check those people out at ozarksgo.net/hawg. Local company. You're going to talk to somebody local if you want to call them at 479-684-4900. One more time, HawgSports is also 50% off. HAWGsports.com. Breaks down to just $103 a week, $448 a month, and billed at $53.70. Come check us out at the #1 independent source for Arkansas sports and recruiting. Get insider access that you can't get anywhere else. Unmatched at HawgSports, HAWGsports.com. We're going to questions. Is that where we want to go? I think we've covered just about everything. Might as well let you guys drive the rest of the show here. I think I've covered how to watch, how to sign up, everything you need to know about the game Saturday. Again, it's moved to 12. For those of you who hadn't caught on to that, they did move the game from 3 o'clock to noon. I think it's going to impact the attendance. I could see less than 40 just because of the early start, taking away the tailgating, things like that. Timothy David Long says, I can't wait. Going to be a great season. Can't wait for the walk and talks. Yeah, we'll be doing the walk and talks. Be sure to check out the walk and talk. Now, you guys have to remember, because I start getting flooded immediately when the game's over. Where's the walk and talk? I've got press conferences after. We've got we got articles to write. We've got other things to get out. I have moved the walk and talk up early, and I stopped worrying about writing a bunch of art. And we have a great team of guys that cover the game and everything. But I have moved the walk and talk up just because everybody demands it, which is insane to me, but I appreciate it. Adam Hall says, has Pittman mentioned anything about closing games where they get a lead? One area I'd love to see fixed. Yeah, the Ole Miss game stands out last year where they just did not finish very well. You got to start strong and finish strong. And Arkansas, for the most part, has not started very strong, and a lot of times they haven't finished strong. That's a good point. I have not heard him mention, we got to wrap the thing up, but I know he knows that. Brian Malone says, who's the player of the game on Saturday, the player that really shows out? I'm going to go with Isaiah Satania. I think they're going to throw, a good number of screen passes to him. I could see him breaking something off and getting some big runs after that. If not him, maybe, KJ obviously would be an obvious choice, Rocket Sanders. But I'm going to maybe go outside the box. I'll go Isaiah Satania. Clint Stacy Patterson says, I hope we can just line up and run over some opponents this year. Hopefully we can start that Saturday. Didn't seem like we could do that last year. They did it last year. They just didn't do it in short yardage. They really struggled when it came down to goal line, short yardage in the red zone, and you got to have it. They just could not get it done last year. They couldn't get the push. So they did rack up rushing yards. The year before that, they obviously led FBS in rushing. Nick Kelly says, who has a better day, offense or defensive? Offense or defense? I think the offense. I think the offense will put up some pretty good numbers. Let's see. I hate how Facebook hops around like this. I lose my spot. Jake Belk said, you guys want to watch some? This is practice footage. I believe this is from Monday. Nope, that's not it. But sign up. Where did I put it? There we go. I put up some practice footage while I have the volume turned off. Okay. Let's see. If Stephen Crook says the offensive line doesn't gel before conference play, should Sam take a more hands-on approach? Would he do that, or would he be too concerned with undermining Kennedy? I mean, Pittman is involved with the offensive line just because that's his specialty, but I don't think it's going to be an issue with this line. But if you have problems with any position group, then you are going to want to reevaluate things. I don't think there's any questions with that. But I think it's a little early to say that. Maybe if that happens, then, we talk about what maybe they would need to do to change things up. Zachary Camp says, hey, Trey, I never get to catch the show because I'm at work. I listen on Spotify. Absolutely love the show. Appreciate that, Zachary. How many games do you think the coaching staff will shuffle around stars on the O-line and secondary? So I think you're probably looking at this game having some now, barring injuries. I think you'll see some things different in this game. Andrew Chamblee, I'm almost certain is going to get the start at left tackle, but eventually as we move forward, I think Devon Manuel will be the left tackle. And I think Chamblee is a future starter, and he's done some good things for him while Manuel's out. I just think Manuel is more ready to go for big-time college football. Chamblee's on the right trajectory to get there. Jonathan Parker says, should be over by halftime. Let the starters start the second half, play one series, and pull them. I agree you always come out with the starters in the second half, even a blowout, just to get the mindset right and kind of a rehearsal sense of, hey, this is how we want to come out of halftime. Go put it in the end zone and then take them out. That would be ideal, but let's not get too far ahead of ourselves and thinking that Arkansas is just going to wipe the floor with these guys, because we've seen too many times where they didn't do that. Now, I think with it being an opener, I think they'll have the right mentality, the energy, the excitement level will be there versus, if you face this team in the middle of the season, between SEC games, I can understand why you might not be able to get up like you should for a game like this. This game, I don't think there's really any excuse at all. Maybe, the trip to Little Rock, I don't like them bussing back and forth. I I'm not a big fan of that. Okay. Not stating any records, says Todd Powell. Not stating any record predictions, but just hope we have a great, healthy season and everyone plays their potential and well and do great things this year. We'll pick so either way. Samuel Carlton says, take Trey, first time, long time. Wanted to get a good understanding of what you've seen in practice in terms of linebacker. We know Pooh will produce. I don't know that linebacker has the same top-end talent that they've had with Drew Sanders. Bumper Pool when he was healthy. Bumper Pool's first 6 games were really where he did most of his damage, and then, kind of battled injuries the second half of the season. His last game was Ole Miss, only had 2 tackles in that game. But I think they have 4 or 5 linebackers they can win with. Antonio Greer's back out there. Crook is undersized, but, he's a headhunter. He's, pretty aggressive, smart player. Obviously Christopher Paul, I think, is potentially their best linebacker. Really intrigued with Jaheim Thomas at 6'4", 240. Guy that has a lot of experience coming from Cincinnati. I mentioned Greer. Brad Spence is a guy that they're really high on as well. Those are probably your top linebackers right now. I'd like to see Manny Powell get in that mix, but right now that kind of feels like, where they are. So I think linebacker's going to have better depth. Here's kind of what I've thought about, okay? So you've got Drew Sanders got kind of banged up middle of the season, slipped a little bit middle of the season, bumper pulls, at the end of the season. And then you really just had Christopher Paul as the other guy, and he started getting to a point where he rotated about as much as those guys in and out, and had 4.5 sacks last year also. But they had those 3 linebackers. Crook played the bowl game, Paul and Crook in the bowl game, and saw some action. But to me, I think they have better depth than they had last year. I just don't know that they have the top end. I don't know if there's a 3rd-round NFL draft pick on this team. So that's kind of where I am with linebacker. I think that they have the potential to get through some tough stretches where a guy gets banged up and stuff, whereas last year they didn't really have that, if that makes sense. Cody L. James says, Broden not in the 6 deep. Yeah, I feel Broden's in the 6 deep. I think he's probably your 4th wide receiver right now. Cody Lewis says, who has impressed the most in fall camp? Also on the other side, who has been maybe a little disappointing? Most impressive. I love the looks of the wide receivers. Andrew Armstrong, we haven't talked about him a lot, but I could very well see Andrew Armstrong, potentially being like a breakout guy for him at wide receiver. I just think there's a lot of candidates, As far as disappointing, who's been disappointing? I don't know if I would say like I've just been disappointed. Like I feel like with the transfer additions, like all of them are fitting in where you'd hope they fit in. All 17 that remain are still, they're in the 2 deep at least. A lot of them are starting. Most disappointing? I don't know that I would say I'm just like disappointed with anybody at this point. It's a good question. I might have to think about that a little bit. Curtis is alive. Good to see him on the show, Trey. I was starting to worry about him. Yeah, Curtis is going to be with us for another, few months. December, I think, is his last month. I don't know if it's somewhere in the middle of December or what he's got planned exactly. But, Curtis is moving on pretty soon. But we've certainly loved having him for the past 3+ years. Has done a great job for us. I'm hoping he'll stick around in some capacity. We'll see. John Smith says, after listening to Kerwin Bell, finding out about some of his offensive player and beginning to believe that Western Carolina can give us a game, at least on offense, am I crazy? It should be crazy. I could see them doing some stuff early here and there, but I think during the long stretch of things, when you start talking about depth and the size of Arkansas wearing them down, I think you'll see some separation if it comes to that. You could also see Arkansas jump out on them early. But they have some explosive players. Like, you can't just roll out there and expect just to take the W. That's not going to happen, because they have some guys. Like I mentioned, the running back is a 4.31. You take a bad step, and he's gone, So just because they're an FCS team and they're smaller at skill spots don't mean that you can just walk out there and win. You've got to come and bring your game. And that's what you should do in the first game. You should have a right mentality, to go out and we want to just stomp these guys and play with focus and discipline and do things the right way. we haven't even talked about penalties that much. Curtis had us in his keys to victory, but, there have been years where Arkansas has come out, in 2021, they had 13 penalties in the first game, the game before they played Texas. That's too many penalties. Even for this opponent, you don't want to see that. You want to see them come out, play crisp, keep the penalties down, feel a good start to the season, a good, clean start to the season. Take care of business. Let's see what else we got. You're welcome, out-of-state fans. What do you think the record would be? I've said 8-4. Ever Garcia coming from Honduras. I've said 8-4, but I think they can win more than that. I think individually, you look at every game, I think they got a shot in every game. Obviously, going on the road at Alabama and LSU are both tough, but I think they got a shot in every game. I think this is the best Arkansas team to this point that will go to Gainesville, Florida, and I think it's the worst team that Florida has had that's going to face Arkansas in Gainesville to this point. That's my opinion, so I think they got a good shot there. Jake Alexander had asked about Antonio Greer not being in the two deep. He had not practiced for a while, but he will play on Saturday. He's been out there all week. Hogs don't cover, says Jeff Clark, but win by 24. Marco Giles says, Trey, have any of the other 24/7 sports team writers tried to mimic your walk and talk series? It's definitely a fan favorite. I know that Fitz over at the Kansas State site does something like that. Like he's, obviously adopted it from me, but he does more, I think, kind of a lot of them, like post press conference and all that kind of stuff. I usually just do it after the game, but I don't think I'm the first person to walk around with a camera in my face, but yeah, I think he's the only one that I know of that does it. Dustin Hoopen says, can Armstrong go over 100 receiving yards this Saturday? Somebody will. Jonathan Parker says they're a freshman that has a breakout game. Luke has. Brad Hodges says, what will be the game of the year for us? I mean, Texas A&M is a big one. LSU is a big one. Ole Miss is a big one. There's a lot. I mean, it's hard to say what's going to be the game of the year, but you'd like to kick things off well against Texas A&M, in Arlington, just because of the way that series has gone. Obviously, your first game is Baton Rouge. I mean, you go to Baton Rouge and win that game, that would be an eye opener. You would be, you take care of those first three games. BYU's not just, you can't just like overlook them, but you take care of those first three games and you do something like go to Baton Rouge and win. You may be top 25 after those first 3 weeks also. You may be top 25 because they're getting votes already. So that could be a top 25 matchup in Baton Rouge, potentially, if Baton Rouge takes care of business also. Rodney Winkler says bad play calling last year on third down. Yeah, that was some of it. Some of it was just the offensive line was supposed to be a strength of the team, could not get a push. But, yeah, they made some play calls that you would like to have back on third down, no question. What's everybody's worst third down play? The play I hate the most? Corner fade. Like you're at the goal line, third down, corner fade in the end zone. Man, I hate it. And coaches do it all the time, and it very rarely works. Drives me crazy. Like third and a foot, corner fade. Austin Finch says KJ's going to break. You jumped. Where'd you go? KJ's going to break the total touchdown record for the Auburn game. He'll break a lot of records. A lot of career passing records. John Smith says, oh no, Curtis is leaving terrible. Yeah, I know. He's done an outstanding job. Trust me, I tried to talk him into staying. But we actually thought Curtis was going to move on at the end of June and just had a change of plans with some things. And we're lucky to have him for, several more months. So, I mean, I don't want to speak for everything with Curtis, but they're moving to the East Coast. His wife is from there. They're just kind of always wanted to start things out there, start a family, just recently married. Let's see. Trey, are you going down to Little Rock to watch it on the tube, or are you going to watch it? I'll be in Little Rock. Trey, are we going to win the Natty this year? Just get that in your head. No, Arkansas is not going to win the national championship this year. It would be nice this year if they had the 12-team playoff, because I'm not saying that they're going to be ranked in the top 12, but if the things go their way, I feel like this team is going to have a better shot than next team to make it to a 12-team playoff, and next year is when they have the 12-team playoff. So that's kind of unfortunate, potentially unfortunate, I will say. It's potentially unfortunate. But again, with the transfer portal and NIL and everything, you can rebuild a team like that, Barbie Hendricks DeMoss says, these Little Rock fans want games. Will show up. I am in my 60s and stay for the entire game, despite some hot and early September games with Big Sui. Rodney Winkler says, negative media, negative fans, go Hawks. Marco Giles says, if they beat LSU and go at least 2-4 for the stretch and finish 10-2. Matt Matchett says, I love KJ, but has he improved like they say he was going to improve in the offseason? We'll see. We haven't had a chance to watch them other than a little bit of thudding up type stuff. We haven't seen like full live tackle, and KJ has never been live tackle. It's, to me, quarterbacks in scrimmages should always complete like 10 percentage points higher. I know they throw the ball a lot and defense pins their ears back because so much of scrimmages is based on the pass game versus the run. But the quarterback knows he's not going to get smacked in the face. And to me, your stuff is a little, your clip should be a little bit higher in those games. All right, everybody. I want to thank everybody for joining me. Thank Curtis Wilkerson for hopping on with us, give us insight on basketball and what he's seen also. Curtis has been out there for all the practices as well. And I want to remind you one more time, HawgSports is 50% off. This deal runs through September 5th, so sign up. It breaks down to $53.70 for the entire year. It's a great deal. $448 a month, $103 a week for the number one independent source on Razorback sports and recruiting. Next time I see you guys, I'll be walking around with a camera in my face. People will be going, what's that dude doing? It's just the walk and talk. All right, everybody. Thanks for joining me. This has been your Arkansas versus Western Carolina primer, and we'll catch you next time.